Hi there, everybody. We've seen the post. International horse shows have been shut down because of this deadly EHV-1 virus. But it isn't just in Europe. Stay tuned as we talk with horse care provider on the devastation this disease brings and what you can do about it. Hi there, everybody. We've seen the news releases and the stories circulating, and I wanted to find out more information. I feel that horse people in the equine community need to know. And I felt that we were getting information, but it just seemed so distant in Europe. But it's not just in Europe. And that's why I contacted Venturing Hill Farm in Quebec, Canada, about their experience. I'd like to welcome Jamie Lorentz today. Hi, Jamie. How are you?
Hi, Laura. I'm good. How are you?
Good. And where are you?
I'm currently in our apartment in the barn, so I do apologize for my background here, but again, we're making the best of everything we can, and we are living literally in the barn, so this is kind of my space for today.
And whereabouts in the world are you?
We are in Luskville, Quebec, so it's about 40 minutes north of Gatineau, into the French Quebec border here, and we are right in the Pontiac region.
Excellent. So Jamie has been around horses all her life. She currently catch rides in Peterborough area and for Trent University on the OCEA circuit. She responded to the call for help and literally dropped everything to travel to Quebec to Venturing Hills Farms for 2 days in mid-February, and she's been there ever since. And you really didn't know these people, huh?
No, I never heard of them. I didn't recognize the names. I'd never heard of the farm. I'd actually only ever been to Quebec briefly for a couple hours when I was a small child, so I really had no idea kind of what I was coming to.
Yeah. And I'm Laura Kelland-May. Welcome to Equestrian Skill Builders, where we share ideas and talk about horsey-related topics that help the horse community. I'm a competition coach specialist, high performance trained Equestrian Canada senior judge and steward. And as a live show producer, I can help you create a successful weekly broadcast. That always lightens everything. You said you saw a call for help. Now, what made you decide that this was important enough to drop everything and help these people, someone you really didn't know?
Honestly, I think it's just a thing in the horse world that, you love the animals, you love what you do, and you always kind of put yourself in someone else's shoes. I don't even think I finished reading the thing fully before I ran downstairs, and I told my parents I got to go, and they said, "Where are you going?" They didn't know, if I was going to the store, and I kind of started laughing. I said Quebec, and they didn't really believe me at first, and then I read the information out to them, and they kind of understood. My parents aren't really horse people, so for them it was a bit confusing. So once I put it down into terms of, if it was people or our dogs, because they're big dog people, that this is a very dire need, and there are very few people in a position where they can drop everything and go. With COVID, I'm off work and my school is all online. So, and as I'm only 22, I don't really have commitments really. So I was able to get up and go. So I kind of felt it was my duty, kind of, because there are so many people in the community that want to help but necessarily can't, they have families or their own horses or whatnot. So I kind of just figured, you know what, I can do it. So why not?
Mm-hmm. So when you arrived in at the stable where you are, what did it look like? Like what were you facing when you arrived?
So I came in, and I think it kind of sums up because I rolled in at midnight by the time I got in here, and it was right in the middle of kind of a temp check time. And so when I came, it was only Ray.
Okay, so what do you mean temp check?
Okay, so every 2 hours we do a temp check of the horses. So we use a thermometer and we take their temperature and record it. And then in that 2-hour period, we do a bunch of other things, including feeding them, checking their hay, giving them medicine, giving them IV, kind of addressing them individually. And then you finish that in your 2 hours, and then you do it again. So when I rolled up, because it was only Ray, Brody, the coach, and Sophie, who actually owned Eddie, the first horse to pass away, unfortunately, they were pretty much going around the clock with no breaks, because the three of them, to complete everything in the 2-hour span, by the time they got it done, it was the next 2-hour period. So they were quite desperate. I came on the 15th of February and Eddie died on the 3rd of February. So from the 3rd to the 15th, it was just the three of them. So I can't imagine how they could do it, because then when I arrived with another girl. We kind of just jumped right into it the moment we arrived, and we're kind of.
And what kind of things were you doing, Jamie? What kind of things needed to be done? Like were there horses, and were they quarantined somehow? And you say you had to do temperature checks and IV and IM. So the horses had been diagnosed, and were they what did the horses look like? What did the stable look like? Like, were you overwhelmed, or?
It was definitely really overwhelming. I've been doing this my whole life. I've seen strangles. I've seen a lot of horses when they're sick or dealing with, and this was nothing. The moment you walk into the barn, for me, it was kind of, and what I've been saying, and the other girls here have been saying too, is that I feel like we're in this own bubble, and that our world is on pause. So yesterday we left the farm briefly. One of the girls and I, we had to pick some things up, and we said to each other, I can't believe, the world is going on around us. Like, we're on pause, because everything we need to do is in this moment, at this minute. And we put everything else, it's out the window. So kind of going out yesterday too is a big eye opener to see the world still going on around us. So for us, the situation is that, you're taking everything 1 minute at a time, because 5 minutes can be the difference between a healthy horse and a sick horse. So when I first arrived, there was just the sick aisle. Everything was quarantined. The barn part that's attached to it was completely cut off. I didn't realize, because as soon as I got there, I was right into things, that there was another barn even attached, and that there were people over there for at least 3 days, because it was so separate. So in there are 12 stalls. And what I came into also is that they were in the middle of a lot of construction, because the morning that horse died, it got stuck in the stall, and they were trying to get the horse out of the stall. But when they go near, they collapse, and it collapsed halfway in the stall, halfway out of the stall. They're trying to take away the stall. So I came in, emotionally, it was a tough place. The barn itself was just, they lost a horse that morning. So you could tell the horses were, again, there's no really word to describe it, but as soon as you walk in, it's
It's
like
that energy in the barn, right? Now, for people who don't know, what are the symptoms? Like, what were you dealing with these horses, that have had it or have it, or what are the symptoms? How do you tell?
They kind of vary based on the horse and how they react to it. Because once we knew with Eddie, and we got the testing and realized what we were dealing with him, all of the symptoms were kind of, you miss them, because they can be quite small in the beginning. And you're not expecting, you have an EHV-1 outbreak, especially there was nothing in the news or anything at this point. So it wasn't until he went neuro, where it's too late, where all of a sudden he was collapsing, that we realized there. Now with the other horses, some of them, our babies have like a discharge from the nose. So they have like a really bad runny nose. The cough is quite common with some of them. And the big one is the fever. So this is mainly to how we track how well they're doing. And that is why it's so detrimental that we do the 2-hour checks. So ideally they want to be between like a 37.5 and a 38.5 temperature. When they have their fever, we have some horses hitting 40.4
Ooh,
plus, which is very, very scary.
yeah.
So then we have to deal with the problem is too, it's like when a person has the flu with the fever, like you have the ups and the downs. So they'll be very hot and get very sweaty. And then all of a sudden they're sweaty and they're shaking and they're cold. And it can reach here negative 35 at night because we are in the heart of Quebec. And so there are those the ups and downs of the shivers, the shakes. But yeah, it's mainly the fever that we keep an eye out for. And that once they go neurological, which is when EHV-1 develops too far, that's when they start getting wobbly. They lose their tail function. And they can't stand, they can't walk straight. So we'll do walk tests with them. We'll walk them up and down the aisle, see if they can turn their feet properly, how they kind of react to these turns, if they feel confident on their feet. And that's kind of everything we look for.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jamie. If you're just joining in, we are talking with Jamie Lorentz, who is dealing firsthand with the EHV-1 virus, and she's a horse care provider at a stable that has had an outbreak, and she's sharing some of the information that she's learned from that and what we can do to help our horses. Now, you did mention that there were some small symptoms that maybe you overlooked that and what are those things that people should keep in mind if they are looking after their horses, and what are some of the small minor things that you said that, well, we didn't really think about that?
Absolutely. Something so simple as, especially with some of these horses, I mean, Eddie, like steady Eddie, he's the same every day. There's just some off, they just seem off. You know, when you're a horse owner, you know when your horse just doesn't seem right. Sometimes it's like an inexplainable feeling. Uh,
Hmm.
so trying to tell that to a non-horse person might seem a little off, but really don't like look for those things. Does your horse seem more tired? Does your horse seem, you know, if you lean into it, kind of a little dopey, kind of a little out of it? Are they coughing more often? Do you notice they're sweaty or they're hot? Do they have any like a runny nose, kind of things? The way I would think of it is look at your horse if it's like symptoms of what would be a human cold. You know, are they coughing? Do they have a runny nose? Are they feeling groggy? Those are all the things. I mean, before EHV-1, you'd kind of just hope maybe they're, you know,
Just something, yeah, he's just got into a bad bale of hay or something like that.
and so even something easy to do, even as, you know, you can get any thermometer from a Walmart or Shoppers Drug Mart, anything, $10. Just if you're unsure how, if you're unsure, just temp your horse, and that's a huge way that can really tell you if you see a fever or even something very low. Call your vet. You know, this is not something you want to wait too long on, because if you wait too long without proper treatment, proper antiviral, and all that, that's when they go neurological. And the problem with neurological is there's kind of no turning back from that.
Yeah. So, what are the sequence of events? So, your horse may have a temperature. Is that kind of the first thing, I guess, if you're having a virus, that's your body fighting whatever it is that's attacking it. So, what comes after that? And you said once they go neurological, that's a crying shame, really. But so, what are the sequences that a horse owner or a barn manager can review or look for if they're concerned about something?
Right. So I wish I could give you a better answer than this, but unfortunately, the problem with EHV-1 is there's no real pattern. There's no real answers. It's, you know, not overly, these outbreaks aren't
Mm.
overly common, and a lot of barns try and sweep it under the rug because the stigma behind it. So you're kind of going in blind, and every horse is different. Every experience they have is different. For example, Cooper, he's 27. he had the virus first after Eddie. So he had that super high fever. He had a cough, and then those were his main symptoms. And then they maintained it, brought it back down, and he became pretty much asymptomatic. Held a nice temperature, wasn't really eating or drinking, but we kind of addressed that. And then without any warning or whatnot, the other day he skyrocketed right back up into the 40s, his temperature higher than it was before. There were no warning signs. We thought he was on this road to recovery, and that was kind of a big hit for our team because it came out of nowhere, and now we're kind of, can this happen to all of them? So unfortunately for a sequence of events, I wish I could tell you, A, B to C to D, but they're just,
you hope it's a linear thing, but it's not a linear thing. It's this horse goes this way and this horse goes this way. And then you mentioned asymptomatic. Now with COVID, we all know what that means. So that's another thing that you have to concern yourself with. So how did you decide which horses were going to be quarantined together and which horses were free from the virus and we're okay to be away from each other?
Absolutely. So a lot of this was determined before I came here based on the vet came out and did the testing and figured things out. So the horses that had the virus and were sick were in the main part of the barn. And by sick, I mean fever, showing symptoms. And then the horses that had the virus but seemed to be okay were put in a different section. And then the horses that do not have the virus are in, we rebuilt like a whole separate barn at the back, kind of attached, but very far out of the way. And then once those horses who were asymptomatic became symptomatic, the barn kind of became one. And then for us, it's almost like there's a progression. It's an L shape. And at the top is where they're quite sick. And then as you go down around the corner to the very end are the horses who have barely had any symptoms. So it is, we think, important still to keep them a fair distance away from those super sick horses. And there are open doors, and because it's an L shape, they are quite further away, but a lot of it kind of just doing the best we can. We've done a lot of building. We've turned our wash stalls outside into stalls. We've turned a shed into stalls.
So it's ongoing all the time. You're just kind of keeping everybody safe. And I would like to remind everybody, if you have any questions or comments, please, we'll try to answer. And I think Ray will be coming on soon. I just want, she's coming here now. There she is. Hi, Ray.
Hello.
Hi. So we do have a comment here. Thank you so much, Jesse, for this comment. Ray and Beck is one of the most wonderful and heartfelt equine professionals I know. Much love, all of them there. They are working night and day to keep their beloved partners healthy. Thank you so much, Jesse, for that comment, and I'm sure that it's much appreciated by them as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Ray, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience with us. And I was telling Jamie that, I was reading the press releases and it just sounded, it was in Italy, it's in Spain, it's all these places at the international horse shows that are shutting down. And I thought, no, it's not. It's not just there.
Yeah, it's at home.
So I wanted to get some information out there. And if people do have questions or comments, we'd really like to have your questions here. And these people are frontline. They've been dealing with it. So they will be able to help you if they can, or maybe help you, direct you to where you can get more information. So Ray, what did you think when Jamie first came on the scene?
Thank God.
At midnight.
I thought, thank God, somebody else, some help. It was, by the time when we reached out for Jamie and Jess, the girls that came and helped us at first, we were pretty much at our lowest point. We had just lost another horse and we were really, really exhausted. And we were realizing at that moment that this was just the beginning. And we were kind of feeling like we were at the depleted end of our resources and at the depleted end of our energy levels. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is really just the start of what we're going into now. And we're going into this for a long time and we are already kind of at 0%. So we need some 100% energy coming in to like boost us back up to like 30, 40, 50%, anything to get us back off the ground. And that's exactly what they did. You know, they showed up and they were positive, and they were not as emotionally connected to the horses at the beginning. I think they might be now, but they weren't at the beginning. And we needed that. You know, we need the people just to come in and motor and to be motivated, and that motivated us in turn. And I think it really brought our energy levels back up and got us, you know, believing that we could get through this again, because there was definitely a couple moments, especially after the second horse passed away, and especially after the third horse passed away, that we were like, we just can't do this. Like we can't do this. We're not able to handle this.
So the first horse, was that a surprise that had this disease?
Yeah, we had no idea there was anything going on. He was identified and gone within a couple of hours. Like by the time we saw that there was something going on, I personally was bringing him out of his stall to turn him out at night. I was working my night check, and you know, he had been fed his lunch that afternoon, very happily to eat his lunch, running around in his stall, and then he'd come in from turnout that morning all well and fine. And then we went to bring him out of his stall to turn him out that night. And it was like watching a person who's drunk try to walk straight on a line. You know, he was walking sideways, not forwards. And immediately we knew something was wrong. That's just not who he is. And so we got him into the barn because he was in one of the back stalls, got him into the barn and got him supported. And it just went like down faster and faster from there. Called emergency vet, got extra help, got extra support. And it was, you know, I think things started around 4:30 p.m. is when I was turning him out, and he was passed away by 10:30, 11 o'clock at night.
So there was no symptoms because you weren't looking for anything, right? So there was no symptoms. So
we would have had no idea, because like the symptoms are so like little things you don't really think about. Like we did notice that he had stocked up legs on Monday. We wrapped his back legs. We didn't know that we were like looking for an EHV-1 symptom. You know, we just thought, oh, like he's been working quite hard recently and he did a big Pessoa, so he must be a little bit stocked up from being inside overnight last night. So we're going to wrap his legs and like take care of that. You know, now we see that that was a symptom. Like that was a very, very clear sign. Symptom. Stocked up back legs is a really clear sign for neurological symptoms. We didn't know that at the time. You know, he had very minimal other symptoms. He had no nasal discharge. He had no cough. He probably had a temperature that we just never knew about. He continued to work. He continued to ride. He was full of his normal Eddie self with everybody, including his owners and the people working with him. And nobody really knew until it was too late. So you didn't know anything. You didn't know that something wasn't, the first indication for you that something wasn't right was when you brought him out of the stall and he really couldn't walk. Yeah, that was, and it was just like a wow factor for us. We were like, something is seriously wrong. So got the vet here, emergency right away. And we worked to do everything we could. We attempted to load him on a trailer at the end, and then came to the combined decision that it was just not the right thing to do. He needs to be let go.
Yeah. I'm very sorry to hear that. And I think it's very key that people understand that they have to know their normal horse so that they can see and understand what a not normal horse is. So
and you can't express enough how much that temperature checks are so critical right now. Anybody that thinks that there could be any chance at all, it takes 1 minute to do a temperature check, right? 2 temperature checks a day, 2 minutes out of your day could save everything. It could give you that time that you need to give them their best chance. You know, Eddie had no chance because we had no idea what was going on. Unfortunately, our other 2 that passed away, they had a lot more of a fighting chance, and they still couldn't overcome this illness, but that other 18 horses that did could, you know. So, and it'll be the first symptom and the first sign as we go through it all, to look for that fever, to look for that nasal drip, to look for different things that your horse is doing that just aren't the norm. It's really difficult because even to get positive test results, they're actually only shedding the virus for a really small period of time. So yes, you'll see, especially if they're going neurological, it'll be in their blood, but it's very hard to gauge exactly what's happening in your herd and how and why. And our results, for example, they don't come back in for 5 to 7 days. What we're seeing is only a snapshot from a week ago, which gives us a gauge for where we were at, but not where we are at now. And it makes it a little bit trickier.
Yes. So for anybody who's just tuning in and listening now, we're talking with Jamie and Ray from Venturing Hills Farm in Quebec, Canada, and they are dealing with a firsthand uh, E EHV. You want to make sure we get the letters in the right order. EHV-1 virus at their stable, and they're just explaining to us what they're doing and what the symptoms are. So now this is a common virus, right? It's the rhino-pneumonitis virus, but it's different, and it's the outbreak of it that's really the concern. Can you talk with us about that? It is a common virus, right?
Yeah, so there are 9 strains of the herpes virus. And while we do have the vaccinations and all of our horses are vaccinated, just like the international horses that you're seeing at FEI
Yep.
competitions, of course they're vaccinated. They have to be. But it doesn't stop the neurological side of the EHV-1. So I mean, our horses are vaccinated and it didn't stop the respiratory side either. So yes, the vaccination prevents a lot of the strains of the EHV-1, but this specific EHV-1 outbreak, we're seeing that's coming out everywhere. I don't know why it's suddenly happening across the globe, but there hasn't been a big outbreak like this in I believe somebody said over 25 years.
And it's devastating. It's not just one place, and people are taking it very seriously, as we found out with some of the press releases that you can see. It just seems to be rampant. Is it because people are a little bit lax in their own biosecurity, their personal biosecurity, and the security of their horses?
I don't know. I think it would be really hard to contain this virus if it got out. I really, really don't think that we can say that about anybody or anyone. Even with extreme biosecurity measures in place, for weeks, we were still having a hard time containing the virus. One of our horses reinfected another one because her viral load was at 11,000. There's nothing we could do about it. That she's been sick and she's been on all the medications now this entire time. And when one of the horses went off his antivirals, her viral load was still so high that just because she coughed and she was in the same barn, that cough was enough to reinfect the horse. Like, we can only expect so much of barns and spaces in the areas that they have, right? If you don't have multiple barns on your property to isolate horses, that's just the reality of your situation. That's the reality of our situation. That's the reality of many farm situations, especially older barns. It wasn't the way like it is now to build lots of smaller barns specifically for that reason, right? And once your infrastructure is there, that's your infrastructure. And I don't know how else that this could be protected, specifically going back to that whole testing time. Like, there are horses that are leaving areas like in Europe that are leaving the showgrounds testing negative, getting home and testing positive, right? What is the solution to that? What is the explanation that we can do better from that? I don't actually know the answers to that. And that's what makes it too, because how can we do better? I don't totally know.
Right. Now, with respect to your specific barn, and were the vets perplexed? I mean, you must have been so perplexed when all of a sudden one of your horses was quite ill, and were the vets perplexed? Like, did they know what it was? Did they have an inkling? Were they surprised? Were they concerned?
Our vet is really incredible. We work with Russell Equine, and we specifically work with Dr. Carol Michon. And honestly, she right away identified either down to 2 possibilities. We were either dealing with meningitis, like an infection in the brain, or we were dealing with some sort of EHV-1 neurological sign. And that's why as soon as she heard of the symptoms that were being exhibited, she drove as quickly as she could to get here. And as soon as she had seen what was happening, we put protocols in place immediately starting then. We did not wait a week for positive test results from Eddie to come back. We started right away, just because.
So what were those protocols?
So as soon as we found out that there was a possibility of this, we immediately I contacted all barns that were in the area that could have potentially had even person-to-person interaction through us for anything in the last month. I let even anybody I know who has horses that could have seen anybody know, just automatically right off the bat, because everybody just needs to be on the lookout for any of those symptoms and signs. Like we said, they're normal things unless you know that you're looking for EHV-1. On top of that, we implemented biosecurity gowns on all of our staff. So our staff started wearing gowns as they went between different areas of the barn. So they'd wear one gown in the barn, they'd wear one gown in one of our outdoor boarding paddocks, a different gown in the back stalls, a different gown. So we could try to at least like isolate which areas we were in. And then even as that kind of progressed, like we started hand sanitizing our pitchforks in between mucking. We started spraying down our hands with hydrogen peroxide and same thing, the pitchforks with hydrogen peroxide, because alcohol does not kill the virus when mixed with manure. So we learned about that. We learned all about our 10-to-1 bleach solutions. We learned all about our Vircon. We were spraying down bars. We were like spraying down the floors with watering cans. We were wiping all of our surfaces. We were doing everything we possibly could to try and reduce any viral spreading, but it didn't seem to matter really. So even at that point, once we got a couple of horses that were getting sick, we tried putting up a barrier in our barn, and we saw we had enough horses. We only had really one chance in our minds to split the sick and the healthy as things were progressing. Again, going back to we only have so many places on this farm. We put up a fully covered wall between the two aisles of our barn and the one spot where we could completely seal off any air and anything that could go through it. And you could see it was working because both sides of the plastic were completely covered in the drips, of which would probably be the virus dripping down. But it's too difficult to say because there were still other horses that had already been infected that were latent and showing signs, right? And then as soon as one of them was sick, you're trying to pull them out of the healthy aisle, but then another one's already there. And we were just finding fever after fever, day after day.
Just kind of like one step behind it. It was keeping a one step ahead of you.
It always to do that, including with the testing. Like you're only behind, you're never in front.
Yeah. No, I did see, I do have a couple of photos I'd like to share, and if you would like to take a look at these. So if anybody who's just joining in, if you would like to ask a question of our guest here today, we're talking about the EHV-1 virus, and they're dealing with it firsthand. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you, and they're here to help you and share their information as best they can. So please feel free to ask a question. So is this Liberty?
That is Liberty, yeah.
Is Liberty still okay?
Yes, she's doing much better. She actually did test positive for the virus and did test positive in her blood for the neurological form. But thankfully, we seem to have gotten through on the other side and are going to be testing again on Monday to see how she's doing. But so far, fingers crossed, she seems to be doing all right.
Excellent. So, okay, we have that photo, and we have, let's see.
Toys. They've been a very big comfort for her. People have been incredible to be sending.
Yeah, so that's my question here. Jamie sent me this photo, and it is a picture of her in her vehicle, and I said, well, why are people sending stuffed animals? I see there are some medical supplies here, but it looks like there's a lot of stuffed animals. So can you explain what's going on with that?
Absolutely. Well, I think it's actually really simple. When you're at a hospital for children, I think one of the most normal things that people think to do is to bring them a stuffed toy, something to give them comfort, something to provide that extra bit of love, because when you're sick, that's all you want. Horses are just like children, and they felt exactly the same way. They were missing love. Like, we were giving and seeing to all of their physical needs. We were seeing to all of their medical needs. But what about the love side? They needed more love. And we didn't know how to give that because we were already working so much around the clock to give medical aid. We didn't know how else to help them. So it actually kind of just started as like a test, because an ex-boyfriend of mine from many years past gave me a large stuffed teddy bear for our 1-year anniversary. And I didn't really know what to do with it after all that time. So I brought it up for Liberty, having seen a video online where a horse had been playing with a stuffed toy and loved it. So I brought it up for her, and she suddenly was so much happier. Like, you could just see, like, whenever she was upset, she would go like play with his head, like run her nose along his like fuzzy body, and she felt better, just like a kid who would hold their stuffed toy when they needed comfort. So then we were like, oh, well, maybe the other horses want this too. And we started getting a couple of donations from incredible people giving us their stuffed toys, and it was unbelievable. The horses were playing with them. They were sleeping on top of them. Like, Liberty's favorite thing now is to sleep with her. She has a giant sheep in her stall now, and she sleeps with her head on her sheep. Like, and this is like, I have many videos of her doing this now from the last couple of weeks. You know, she has a sloth that she plays with whenever it's after feeding time. Our babies, they have that pink fox that you saw in that picture. They, like, so many of our horses, they have ones on the ground and they have ones tied. We had to take off the eyes, which is a little bit creepy. But they all love them, and you could see that they just felt better having somebody else in their stall in that comfort, because they also don't get to see each other. They don't have their turnout buddies. They don't have their same kind of connections that they've been missing. They've been in their stalls for so long. So just having that other fluffy friend was what they wanted.
So this is looks like it's Liberty again, and this is getting some treatments or drawing some blood. So this is what you're saying, that the only time they get contact is when you're going to give them, treat them, or take their temperature or feed or whatever. So that's why it was so important to have the animals with them, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. And then people were incredible too. Like, now we have a lot of Ppe Gowns, so we put our gowns on and gloves and fully disinfect ourselves before we go in the stalls. And Greenhawk was incredible enough to donate brushes for each sick horse. So now, on top of those stuffed toys, we can also go in and brush them and make sure that every horse gets that little bit of love every day. But we were trying to be so careful, and we did not want to share brushes. We did not want to go in the stalls. We did not want to spend that extra bit of time with them in order to protect them, because of us as humans are the biggest carriers. So it was really difficult just trying to see them suffer and also do our best for them, but only know we could do so much.
Excellent. Well, that's great. And now, you did mention you had some donations. Now, is there other ways that people can donate and help you?
Yeah, so we've had an incredible amount of support from our GoFundMe, and that is still running right now. Our costs are skyrocketing. We got our first round of bills from our Russell Equine, and it was a bit terrifying, and that's only the first round of bills. We bought 2 really large hay gain machines, because the respiratory side of the virus was so bad and the cough was so extreme for some of them. They were coughing up blood. So we needed to get the hay gains to steam the hay and help them out. Those were really, really, really expensive. We've had to invest in a nebulizer, because same thing, we just could not seem to get those coughs down. So much PPE equipment has been donated to us. We are incredibly grateful, and so many needles and syringes that have been there to help us. But we continue to accept donations from our GoFundMe, because it is a long haul, and this only so far is covering off where we've gotten to this point. We have another 100 days from the point of our last fever, which we are hoping to start counting on Monday, before we can start teaching lessons again, operating as a business, and having any kind of actual income. So that's almost 3.5 months after this 2-month period that we're going through right now, where the virus has completely destroyed our herd, decimated our levels, and kind of put us down into a position that we have never been in before.
That's amazing. Not only are you sideswiped with COVID, then you get this as well. So yeah, so getting yourself from underneath that. Now, are you virus free now?
We are not virus free right now. We still have 5, according to our last set of test results that we just got in a couple of days ago, we still have 5 horses that are testing positive for the virus, and with pretty high viral loads. So we need to do another set of tests on Monday to see where those horses are at, because the problem is when they have that high viral load, it's more likely, especially with those that have the respiratory side of the virus, that they can recontaminate other horses. So we have still got almost all of our whole herd on the antiviral medication medication, which costs $2,000 a round for every 12 days, because we need to know that they will not have that chance of being reinfected once they go off of it, because we need the viral load of all horses to be low enough for that to be safe.
Yeah, so that's that's amazing. So as a business owner, you're facing a lot of challenges. You're going to continue to face these challenges. So from the point of when you last have a virus, a positive virus, to when you can open your business, what kind of framework is that? So if
100.
at what point, 100 days?
100 days. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
the ultimate gestation period of the virus, like the most risky time, is 21 days after the last known fever. But it has been proven and it has been researched and it has been shown that the virus can continue to live for 100 days. And I am not interested in taking that risk. I am not interested in risking any other farms. I am not interested in sharing in the spread of this virus. So we will not be going anywhere. We will not be doing anything for 100 days.
right. So we do have a comment and question. Christine, thank you so much, Christine, very much for giving us this question comment. Can you share what are your lessons learned to help other farms protect their horses from this terrible disease? Exactly. What are some things that barn owners, barn managers, and horse owners, even on their own private property, that that you've learned?
So it's really hard, because that's a question that I've been trying to ask myself a lot too. In terms of, if the virus becomes prevalent on your farm, start the Valley Clover right away, the antiviral medication. We are truly, truly, truly believing that even though there hasn't been as much research done on it, it's the same thing that they're using to treat COVID as an antiviral medication. And it really helped lessen the symptoms on the horses that got started on it within the first 24 hours of the signs of a fever. Including the blood thinners. It's really, really important for the horses to get those immediately. In terms of trying to prevent the virus from being on your farm and the lessons learned from that, I'm not sure. I think we need to do a lot of research on that after this whole pandemic is over, because obviously we're having that issue in Europe. It's now in Florida. There's been a case in Chester County, Pennsylvania. There's 3 or 4 cases now in Toronto at different farms. And then there's us, who it just happened to get connected in with all of that through horse sales and purchases, just like almost every farm does all the time. How do we stop that? How do we prevent that? Even positive or negative test results are not a very clear indication, because, like I said, the virus sheds for such a short period of time. One negative test result does not indicate that your horse is actually negative. That's why they need a couple of tests to say that they are actually positive and or negative to be safe. So
And 100 days virus free before you can really start your business off, or at least comfortably, without worry, start your business up.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I do have a question from Facebook, actually. Is everyone okay? It was green trigger. So I know EHV and how bad it is. I know I should clean my boots if I'm going from one barn to another. Question, do I need to scrub them, or can I throw them in my freezer? Does the cold kill EHV?
No, it does not. The virus loves the cold. It does not kill the cold. The virus does not get killed in the cold like that. You need to get a floor or a bucket or something, and you need to be soaking your boots in like 10-to-1 bleach solution. Or Vircon, whatever, like something that kills the virus. It's not good enough to just put them in your freezer. And you need to be doing the same thing with your clothes, and you need to be showering, because even your hair carries the virus. If you walk into a barn that's got the virus and like a horse coughs, it doesn't mean you need to touch that horse. That horse coughs, the virus goes on your hair. You go into the stall of a barn at another barn, and that another horse is around you and they touch you or whatever, boom, it's spread. Like, it is that contagious. So even if you're not going to be able to shower in between, then have different hats, different clothes in garbage bags that are labeled. Get some Ppe Gowns. This is COVID, and they're not that hard to find right now. They're not cheap, but they're not that hard to find. If you have a gown for each farm, or a full biohazard security outfit for each farm, a lot of them are machine washable. It's the best way to do it, because your clothes, it sinks into your clothes, into your jackets. Like, you need to be really, really, really careful about how much you're washing. And even when you walk into your house is then infected. You need to take your boots off before you walk into your house. You need to be disinfecting your car between going to different barns, and your tires, because even the tires of your car can carry it from barn to barn. Anybody that has been leaving deliveries for us have been leaving it at the top of the driveway, so not to even risk coming down our driveway, which is almost 2 kilometers long, to come down to the barn, because it's not worth the risk. So going between barn to barn is just really risky business, and you have to be so cautious and careful. Even anybody that's coming to help us, we require their homes to have no horse contact for 2 weeks after the time that they've helped us, just to be extra sure and safe. Nobody in the home can have a horse, be in contact with anybody that has a horse. It's not worth the risk.
So you say 2 weeks. So the virus will be 2 weeks live on my hair, on my clothes, on my boots, on my tires, on my vehicle.
It can be in a damp, dark space. So 4 to 8 hours is the really, really contaminated period. But anything, and like moisture holds the virus, it can live in damp, dark spaces or on damp, dark surfaces for up to 2 weeks. So it's just, again, not
2
worth
weeks. Awesome. So we have this from Lindy. Thank you so much, Lindy. I really appreciate you leaving a comment. I just wanted to thank everyone at Venturing Hills for being so completely transparent about the situation. So often stables try keep outbreaks and illness quiet and hidden. You have educated so many people and saved so many horses by being public, honest, and diligent. I agree, and thank you so much, Lindy, for pointing that out. Very, very nice. Nice to hear, I'm sure.
really,
Because you probably totally agree with that. I mean, it's the whole thing. It's I didn't realize there was anything going on, and thank you so much.
realized how deadly EHV-1 was until it got here to this farm, and I really, really don't want anybody else to learn how deadly it is in the same way. Like, learning the hard way is not the best way, and I don't want anybody else to learn the hard way. What a horrible thing this is. It is not a conversation that any barn owner wants to have an end of life conversation with every single one of their boarders. Like, who wants to go through that? I'm not a doctor. I did not sign up for that. And that is a conversation that every single horse on this farm owner and I have had, so that we know where we stand, because we had to have that conversation. And that's not a nice place to be.
No. And I think on that comment, we're going to leave everything go here. And I want to thank you so much, Jamie and Ray, for taking the time out of your schedule. It might have been a little bit of reprise for you. And thank you so much for everybody who makes comments. And thank you. And I hope things get better. And we shall see you next week. Do you have any final words for people who are listening in?
We're just crossing our fingers and hoping that the situation down in the States at WEC gets resolved before any other horses get sick in Ocala. And we're really, really, really out there to help anybody. So any questions, any concerns, please send us a private message. My Facebook account name is Ray and Becky, and you can send a message to me directly or to the farm at Venturing Hills Farm, where Jamie will be your point of contact.
Okay, so it's Venturing Hills Farm. I'm just going to put that right in the comments.
Yeah.
HTTP www.venturinghillsfarm.
Yeah, Venturing Hills Farm. We have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, a website, and my email address is on there. We went public with this to try and help people. So
is that correct? There, can you see it?
That's correct.
Okay, so they will be able to click right on that, and they'll be able to give you a message. And thank you so much for taking the time to out of your day and to share this information with us. It wasn't really happy ones, and I'm very sorry that this happened to you, but thank you so much for sharing the information, because it's so important that we all really learn from this.
If we can save one life, it's good enough.
Right. So thank you so much, and we will see you next week. Thanks now.
Have a good day. Bye for now.